Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary, this instant reaction following a Canada win over Finland. Instant is doing a bit of heavy lifting there. A little delayed on this one, but thanks, everyone, for popping by today. Shout out Deeds in the chat. As always, an amazing supporter, so thank you so much, Deeds, for hanging out today. So this one, it's going to be pretty obvious. We're going to be chatting about Canada as they pick up a win over Finland at the Four Nations, and the Canadians are now off to the gold medal game, the final, the last game of the tournament, with which when you win, a trophy gets handed out at the end. I don't know what we're officially calling it, but it's the last game and the championship game the Canadians will be involved in. So it should be a whole lot of fun. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out in here in the Twitch chat and the stream if you are watching it live. Yeah, if you're not, thanks for hanging out on YouTube or watching in or listening in podcast form after. We had a poll up. Who is your player of the game? 50% go Nathan MacKinnon, 50% go Sidney Crosby. My personal one was probably McDavid. I thought he had a really, really good game and thought that, I mean, the great thing for this one for the Canadians, as we're just going to dive into it. But I thought the great thing for the Canadians is that the options that you had to choose from for player of the game, were quite plentiful. There were a lot of guys who were involved. And B, it was your top players, right? Like, this wasn't a game where, oh yeah, the depth stepped up or whatever. These are the guys who are going to have to play well if Canada is going to beat the Americans in this tournament and end up with a championship out of it. But yeah, Crosby, excellent. MacKinnon, really good. McDavid, I thought he was great. And I thought he had a real good control of this game. And just anytime he's out on the ice, it is just masterful what he is able to do out on the ice. And just how the second he is out there, even if he doesn't like touch the puck, you know he is out there. Like, it's just the mood changes when Sidney Crosby is out on the ice. Deeds in the chat. I chose Crosby. It was more he scored that empty net when Canada was scrambling. I mean, that totally fair. Not only did he score, but he makes that check in the neutral zone that breaks it up, giving Canada the puck and then the goal that ultimately seals this one away. But no, he was really good in this one as well. Swig of water for the working man. Sorry, spill of water for the working man. Also, nice little See a Dead sticker. You get that every time you order from cfdead403.ca, our presenting sponsor for Couch Potato Diary. But that I think the story of the game was water quotation marks. That one, it actually is water. I'm goofy enough and wild all over the place without anything altering consciousness. So if it wasn't water, you could tell. But for Canada, I do think the big story is the big guys all step up. You have Point get added to a line with McDavid, which, oh my God, the speed. And that pass that he makes, that McDavid makes, back to Sanheim, who is joining the rush, shot stop, Point, the footwork and everything to just kick it up to your stick and tap it in is mind-bogglingly good. Like, if that happened in a video game where you're on a rush 4-on-2, Sanheim stopped, rebound comes in front, and then you slow it down, and you see Point just as he is slowing it go skate to stick and kick it in, I would be like, really? That's how they scored on me? And I would say it was unrealistic. That the skill in this tournament is so impressive. And I was thinking about this. For those who don't know, I'm on Calgary radio out here, and we occasionally. And we were talking about this, and there hasn't been a best-on-best tournament in a long time, and all of that. And one of the things I am coming to a realization with in this tournament is that the definition of best-on-best is changing a little bit. And I, not in the way that other people are talking about, where there's no Russia, there's no Draisaitl, there's no this, that, or the other thing. But, like, Drew Doughty said it himself when, after that first game, like, that was the fastest game I've ever played in. It is nice to have these tournaments, and just for the competitive aspect of it and the, oh my God, this is awesome aspect of it. But it is also nice to just kind of see, like, what is where are the best players at, and where is the game at right now? And I think even if you went back and watched the last World Cup with TNA and Europe in there, but then even back to like the '02, and you go back even further, the speed and the skill and the talent that is on display, it really shows that best on best is even bester than it was before because of the speed of everyone out on the ice. Yes, Toxic, I haven't forgot you guys. It was away for a week because I was over on 960, and I know I said, oh, I'm not going to forget. We're going to try to make something work, and then it got away a little bit. So, but we're back to your regularly scheduled programming here this week for sure, for the most part. But anyway, back to the game. The thing that really has stood out to me is that, like, you are seeing an evolution in the speed and the skill in this sport. And that's just how humans work, right? Like that, people get bigger, faster, stronger all the time. So the speed in this tournament has been so impressive. And then the plays that are able to be made at that speed and at that pace is so incredible. And no one exemplifies that more than Connor McDavid. And as I said, I'm out here in Calgary, do Calgary radio occasionally. And one of the things I mentioned, and it got a couple people a little bit riled up, it's kind of nice to be able to cheer for that McDavid guy a little bit, you know, like come Saturday, next Saturday, we're not gonna, right? Like enough of that. But for what it is now going to be 4 games, really nice to have that guy on your side. Holy cow, is he good? It's such a smart play that he makes on that first goal, where he has all this speed coming in and Montepallo cuts him off. And so instead of just wasting a shot on goal, it's like, no, I'll circle around. I'm the best player in the world. I can probably hang on to this for a little bit more. Circles it back around, comes back in. Oh, well, I have another shooting lane, and it scores and gets Canada on the board 1-0. The talent that dude has, it's remarkable. But no, you're right, Deeds. Like Crosby comes up, I think, with probably the biggest goal, that 4-0 one, the empty net goal, really does, it calms everything down. And that's what Crosby is supposed to be here for, is when things are getting wild in a way that none of these guys have ever really experienced before because of the lack of international hockey at this caliber over the last little while, he is the one who's like, no, we've been here before. We had to go to overtime with the golden goal. That's why we got to celebrate after, because it was in overtime. I know what this is about. And settles everything down, makes the read, makes the right play, and puts this one away. But then it's the other stuff that he does as well. Like you don't normally think of Sidney Crosby when his career is done. We're not going to go, you know what he is? Awesome forechecker. Like that's going to be the 19th thing that comes up. But what's he doing in this game? Up 3-0, second period, aggressive on the forecheck, causes some havoc, creates a turnover. Reinhart with a very smart pass, and MacKinnon, boom, and it's into the back of the net, and it's 4-0, and that was, again, a really important part of this hockey game. But it's Crosby, again, creating a little bit of chaos off of that as well. So, no, that he was excellent, and he was everything that Canada needed him to be in this game. But I think everyone played their role for Canada here. Everyone did what they were supposed to be doing. Defensively, I saw it in here. Dietz, Makar looked good after missing that game. Yeah, honestly, they brought it up like, oh man, Makar, it's going to be nice to have him against the Americans. Oh, right. Like, you didn't watch him out there tonight and think, oh, that's a guy who missed some time. That's not where the thought process went. It was more, okay, that's one of the best defensemen in the world. He was great. Taves has been excellent throughout this entire tournament, and obviously those guys have a chemistry there. But then defensively as well, I have really liked Morrissey this tournament, and Morrissey has always been a guy that I've really, really liked. Sanheim, I'll admit, like, I don't watch a ton of the Flyers right now. He's been phenomenal. I have loved what I have seen from Sanheim in this tournament as well. But so the defense plays their role, but then the forwards, like we said, it's the big guys who do what they're supposed to do first. It is McDavid, it's MacKinnon, it's Point, it's Crosby. It's those guys coming up with the big plays, and then the lunch pail group comes in. It's like, all right, we got this from here. And for 58 minutes and 20 seconds, that was fine. And then there is a scramble at the end. I'm not going to read too much into that at the end. That is a desperate team with their tournament on the line, frantic and all of those things. Now, what was impressive about that from Finland, and we'll get to a little bit of Finland on here. You can see behind me, there's obviously a lean to this particular program, but we'll get to Finland in a little bit. But one of the things that impresses you there with, again, tournament on the line, season, whatever you want to say, and everything is just, oh my God, chaos. There was smart execution in the chaos. So instead of, and Craig Simpson brought this up on the broadcast, instead of just firing it into 18 different layers of shin pads, Laine gets another opportunity off of his one-timer that creates the chaos. And instead of just, I'm going to rip this one home again, now let's get it in front to Granlund. Good luck, goal. Barkov, same thing. It is a little bit of chaos. And instead of just like trying to, he is driving to the front of the net. And as you would expect, he is the captain on Finland. Everyone is swarming around him. He recognizes that, passes it off to Granlund, who scores. So it was impressive, their execution in the chaos. But I'm not going to put too much against Canada on that one. Deeds is bringing up Binnington in the chat, and we will absolutely talk about Binnington in a second. But the point of all of that is I'm not going to overreact too much to the last minute 40 there. Before that scramble at the end, like I said, everyone played their role the way that they were supposed to. It was the top unit went out and scored the goals. And then it was Bennett, it was Marchand, it was Hagel, who I have loved in this tournament. All went out and battled and competed and grinded this one down and really just didn't let Finland get a whole lot going there. It was... Everyone played their role, and it was the exact type of a performance that Canada probably was expecting when they put this team together. And I still have a few thoughts about how this team has been put together, and I think we will see maybe some of the side effects of that when they play the Americans coming up on Thursday in the gold medal game again. But for now, for how this team is constructed, that is how this team is supposed to play. I think now a lot of the attention is going to turn on the goaltending, and we'll get to that in a second. Deeds. Finland not giving up and taking time and shooting when lanes opened was impressive. Yeah, and it's in those moments, right? Because like even, and not to keep equating everything to a video game, but even if you're just playing a video game and it's just scramble mode and it's just everything is shoot, just spam the shoot. No, in years past it was a button, now it's the joystick, but just spamming that shoot to try to get something going, and you would be completely justified in doing that with, again, it's 4-1, it's 4-2, you're trying to get anything going, so just put it on net. Instead, no, let's adjust, let's see what happens. And Canada in those spots is getting a little bit chaotic as well, and that is the one interesting part about or one of the many, I think, interesting parts about this tournament is you'll see, like in the regular season in the NHL, there'll be a turnover and then all chaos breaks out. Because like, okay, who has who where? How are we going to manage this? And now you see the best players in the world, and it's the same thing. When it's chaos, it's just, where's the puck? I'm going to dive in front of it. Who has it? Barkov. Shit. Okay, swarm that guy because he's one of the best players in the world. So swarm that guy. What, Granlund? God, Granlund again? You know, like it is chaos out there. And for Finland to have that level head out there with the chaos and everything like that was very, very impressive to see from this Finnish group. So I liked what I saw from Finland. Their tournament does come to an end, but a lot to build on going towards the Olympics. Now it's the goaltending conversation. Deeds. Binnington looked rough. Rebounds were bouncing off and didn't seem controlled. I'm not a goalie expert, but I am worried about him. It's weird because they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I kind of agreed. It was his best game of the tournament, and it was also still concerning. And it's what we talked about on 960. He has played not bad enough that you have to pull him, but not good enough that you can't. And so it has been this perpetual, I don't know, what do we do? I think at this point, you have to go with him against the Americans. And I know, following along on X, or at least scrolling through now, I was a bit delayed watching the game, but scrolling back on X just to see how people were reacting, and a lot of people, you have to pull him. You can't. I think you can very much debate whether we should have got to this point with Binnington where he was starting in the Finland game. But I think now to ask Aiden Hill to come in after basically sitting for a week and now play one of the most talented teams that's ever been assembled in international hockey with the championship on the line when you haven't played at this speed is entirely unfair to that goaltender. Now, he would do it. I don't think he's saying like, oh man, I can't believe the position they're putting me in. But I think at this point, even with the Binnington struggles, you are pot committed to Binnington. And we can definitely have the conversation about how we got to that point. But now that we are at this point, I just don't see a way where Canada can go with Adin Hill, who hasn't started a game yet in this tournament. I don't see how you necessarily can do that. Taking a look here, when was the last time Adin Hill played a game? Like, this isn't like it's the Olympics, it's been a month or anything like that. Like, this isn't in the World Series where Nestor Cortez comes in and this guy hasn't pitched in a month and he just gave up a grand slam. The last time he played was, last time he played was February 6th. So you are asking him to take 2 weeks off and then come in against Matthews and Tkachuk and Eichel, and then Larkin, who was having an unreal tournament, and Gensel, and Hughes, and all of these different guys. I don't think you can at this point. It would be a really bold move, in my opinion. So, again, we can very much have a conversation about whether it should have got to this point where Binnington got all 3 games, but I do think that now that you have done that, you have to go Binnington again on Thursday against the Americans. And I'm with you, Deeds. The confidence level is not high. And I think that we saw how things can snowball on one bad goal against the Americans. And I think we saw in the first game, Canada and the USA are actually pretty evenly matched. I would have some concerns about the bad goal being let in being the difference in that gold medal game. So what needs to change now for the Canadians going into that game against the Americans? One of the things I had pointed out in looking at kind of how this game was going to take place was the Americans in their first game against Finland gave up a lot of odd man rush opportunities because of how aggressive their forecheck was. And Canada wasn't fully able to take advantage of that. But now you have the best puck moving defenseman in the league probably back in your lineup. If not the best puck moving defenseman, just the best defenseman in the league in Cale Makar, back in your lineup. And so he is going to be able to maybe maneuver away from that aggressive forecheck from the Americans as well. The crowd is definitely going to be behind the USA. Obviously, the game's in Boston. It's going to be a really, 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 really pro-USA crowd, I would assume. And we're going to have a lot of debates about anthems coming out of that game. But I do think that like the USA with the 3 fights in 9 seconds, it was an epic moment. But I do think that kind of slowed Canada down a little bit and didn't let them get out to that big jumping start. It just kind of delayed things a little bit. And I don't think the answer for Canada is, well, then the 4 fights in 13 seconds and let's slow them down. I think Canada doesn't want this thing to be slowed down. I think they want the USA to maybe be a little bit too aggressive because we have seen in the past the Tkachuks can be a bit too aggressive and hope that they're trying to go make a big hit. And then you can just couple subtle little passes and off we go and take advantage of those opportunities there. And you saw in this game, Canada doesn't need a whole lot of space to use that speed and skill that they have. MacKinnon had just a itty little bit of room and quick acceleration, got to the puck and scored. McDavid, same thing. Oh, there's a little bit of an opening. Goodbye. And their acceleration is incredible. So you don't need a lot of space to take advantage of that. But the U.S. did a good job of keeping the Canadians to the outside and really playing a tight checking game, not letting them use their speed. Canada needs this to be a bit more of a track meet. And again, you then get into the concerns about a bunch of shots going on your goalie where you have a distinct disadvantage. Like the forward group for the Americans, the defense group for the Americans, all of it probably a little bit better than Canada. Although, I mean, it's Crosby, MacKinnon, and McDavid. So it's tough to say, well, yeah, but the forward group that has those 3 guys is at a disadvantage. But I would say depth, the Americans have the advantage. On the blue line, I think it's pretty close. In net, it ain't close. It's Hellebuck over Binnington 1,000 times over. And so I can understand the trepidation of trying to... I understand the concern of not wanting to get into a track meet when if you're in that, then maybe it's 35 shots on net against your dude there, and you have a bit of a concern there. But I just think in that first game, Canada tried to play the U.S.'s style, and it just didn't work. And I think a faster pace helps out the Canadians in this spot maybe a little bit more. Which brings us to an overall roster construction debate that it's tough to really hammer on Canada after they just won to go into the championship game. But I do think when you look at this tournament and look at how Canada has been playing and what has been successful for them, I still think trying to bring a checking line and hoping that works maybe wasn't the way to go. And now it worked in this game, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have brought Bennett or anything like that, but no Scheifele here, I think, is really hurting them. And I think where it showed up was in the American game. When you saw, like, okay, the top lines, I'm not going to say are going to cancel each other out, but they're all going to get their chances. But then it was the American fourth line, and they're still doing the checking stuff, but then Larkin is scoring, and they're creating different opportunities with Trocheck battling, and Boldy, who has just been brilliant in this tournament. Those guys, they just brought the best forwards and said, okay, look, you guys are the best forwards on your team. You're 10, 11, 12 on this team, though, so you can do all the offensive shit that you normally do, but we're also going to need you to do a checking thing. Instead of Canada bringing the best checkers and hoping for that, the best checking line can work against NHL lines. It ain't going to do shit against Eichel, Tkachuk, and Tkachuk. So I would rather just have the best skilled guys and just tell Scheifele, and I know that ain't his bag, but just tell Scheifele, look, dude, we're going to need a little bit. You're not our number one center. You're not our number two center. And I don't know if you noticed, not our number three center either. We're going to need you to at least contribute defensively. And then when the opportunities come, it's offense as well. And try to spread that depth out that way. We talked about this around the World Juniors. The way that I would like to see Canadian teams built is just bring the best players and get them to buy in, instead of trying to formulate everyone and just, okay, we have an idea for a checking forward, so we need a checking forward. Or just get, the 10th best Canadian forward in the world and tell them, you're in a checking role now because this is a best on best tournament. Canada's always tried to shoehorn people in as if it's an NHL roster. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. We will see if it works out on Thursday. But that was a bit more negative on Canada than I wanted to get to. Overall, this has been a good tournament for the Canadian team. You are seeing the skill that this country has, and it has been so much fun to see McDavid and MacKinnon and Crosby and all of those guys out there, and seeing John Cooper and the adjustments that he is making, and seeing some of the players that have stood out here. Canada has a real chance against the Americans coming up on Thursday night in the championship game. They're probably going to have to play perfect, but Canada has a real chance after what was a pretty well complete effort from the Canadian squad against Finland, with the obvious exception of the last minute 40 of this game.